Hello, beautiful people. Feeling a little overwhelmed with the amount of games out there? Need something new to play that isn't a $70 quadruple A title with very little substance? Don't worry, I'm here to point out some inexpensive but interesting indies to check out. So grab a drink, open Steam, and start wishlisting. Now this was a surprise to me. I've never heard of this game, and only gave it a look because it's on Game Pass, and I'm a little disappointed in myself for that. Only when starting to write for this video did I notice it came out in 2022, a whole 2 years ago. The world of Anuchard is filled with despair, as the once powerful island fell from the sky after the 5 guardians left them. Times are tough, so many try and brave the dungeon, a strange otherworldly area filled with what the village needs. But no one has ever returned, except as statues, until you. You play the Bell Wielder, chosen to repair this broken world with the magical bell that whacks, smacks, and heals the world. Firstly, Anuchard is gorgeous. I have to get that out of the way. It's not just the pixel art, but the color and how they bleed into each other. It's a style I love immensely, and I want stills from this game hanging on my wall. It pulled me into the world so effortlessly and made me want to see where things are going, which is great because the story is kind of meh. It's not bad, taking a lot of inspiration from the Quintet series of games, and a sprinkle of Alundra for spice. All wonderful games and dealing with similar themes about the restoration of a fallen civilization, and finding hope in dark times. Things we can all relate to more every day. But the characters don't really engage me. The game does a lot of talking, but with little substance in the dialogue itself. Sure, there is characterization. Even the voices that talk to you from the bell have personality, but there's too much of it. And it's a bit unfiltered, so it washes over me like white noise. Combat is more memorable. You have your basic combo with the bell, along with a dash that can knock enemies back. On its surface, combat is a bit stiff, your swings take a while to hit their arc, and enemies attack fast. But you have to learn to master that dash. Not only is it great for dodging, but it can knock enemies back and against walls to stun them for a bit. Later dungeons require you to learn this to remove their shields in order to damage them. It can also be used in puzzles, like knocking this pulsating orb around. Later you unlock more combat upgrades that can give you other benefits, like a short-range beam at the end of combos, or a stronger dash. It's basic, but gets the job done. The only problem sometimes is enemies can hit faster than you can react, and you'll need to step back. There also doesn't seem to be any invincibility frames, so if you're not careful, you can get spammed with attacks until you die. The music is also a bit lacking too. It's good, but a lot of songs get reused, most notably the one dungeon track so far, and mix that with the backtracking in dungeons, it can get a bit dull. It would have helped if the devs also added a run button to help move things along, instead of having me dash the entire way, like I'm playing Dark Souls and the levels are filled with barrels. Overall, I was enchanted playing this. The visuals and sound design really carry a lot here, and the rest is good as well. I recommend it with the caveat that it seems to be a dead game. The devs only made this and never released any patches for it, which is a shame because I did run into a bug where interacting with anything just brought up the same text box. I wish the game had done better, but for now, I plan on playing some more in my free time, and recommend any people interested to give it a try too. Quick disclaimer, I received a copy of this game for free, even though I own it on Epic, but I wanted to give the Steam version a look because the Epic launcher keeps trying to get me to sign an Eldritch contract before I install any games. Towaga is somehow a difficult game to explain, even though the gameplay is incredibly simple. Aim your laser at enemies and blow them up before they hit you. Wait, I guess that wasn't hard at all. It's a lot of fun, but there are issues. Controls are good, except on controller because I have a cheap one and it sucks with precise aiming like this. So just use the mouse. But be careful, since even if you set the display on full screen, the mouse will still escape. You have spells that can help. A wave that kills any nearby enemies, an ice beam that freezes, and the last one I'll talk about, an AoE that turns everyone around you to stone. Besides those abilities and some new enemy types every few rounds, there isn't much more to say other than it's just fun to sit back and play this one-handed. Oh! So to upset the regular form of gameplay, you also have levels where you fly, which ironically are harder since there are more enemies and these stupid bats that shoot homing projectiles. It gets very messy, which is a problem for me where even though the visuals are great, having a strong resemblance to Guacamelee in places, The effects and flashing strained my eyes, and I went looking in the options to turn it off, but there was nothing to make the experience less straining. After an hour I had a small headache. Not Mad Mullet Jack size. That demo almost caused my head to explode after 15 minutes, but still bad enough where I can see other people with sensitive eyes having issues with how busy this screen gets. Lastly, there are upgrades. But these are just incremental to your standard abilities. Nothing really special to talk about, though why you wouldn't max out your beam size is beyond me. Be a shower, not a grower. I liked Towaga for the 2 hours I played it. It's a lot of fun, and for the price, it's worth spending an evening on. I'm a proponent of short, inexpensive games, since not everyone has a free life to dedicate to one game, and a nice palate cleanser can be quite enjoyable. Their other game, Nocturnal, looks sick too. I'll definitely check it out. Plastomorphosis. What does it mean? Spoiler, it's mannequins. Killer mannequins. I think Condemned is about to sue someone. Jokes aside, Plastomorphosis is a horror game in the vein of classic titles like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, almost exclusively. Designers just stopped playing any new entries over the years and stuck to what they like, which is admirable, but I have mixed feelings on this. I love how it looks, and that you have the option to lower the static intensity to the point where my eyes won't beg to be closed. So many indies make that mistake, but this game gets it right. I love how the reds bleed out and warp over the environment in the first area. It's really unnerving when mixed with the sound design. Horror games thrive on that feeling that something is off, and this one takes its time to set it up and just get you ready. Wait, is this game a joke? Is this memes? The actual story itself seems pretty serious, taking place in a future where people are exposed to dark energy that turns them into monsters, so their only hope is living under a regime that promises protection. Spoilers, you find out that the government has weaponized the monsters, and predictably it went wrong. Other than that, the story tends to lean more towards being vague, which isn't a criticism, but I don't know if it's being serious with some of the choices made here. Being a game that takes inspiration from the retro horrors of PS1 and 2, the combat is your standard, aim with L2 and shoot. The character auto-aims at least, and is fairly accurate. Other than that, you just run away to get some distance. There isn't a quick turnaround button, which even RE1 had, so that's a misstep. But most enemies don't offer much of a threat in the beginning. Only once you fight this angry running band does the combat get a bit dicey. And luckily, the game supplies you with more than enough bullets. More than enough. The biggest meat here is the puzzles, which I don't want to get too into because I struggled with them a bit, and they can be quite challenging, and require some thinking and paying attention to the environment, which feels fresh enough. Quotations. Luckily the map can show you where key items are, making it so you don't have to pixel hunt. I don't know if I were to say this is harder than Silent Hill 2 or Dino Crisis in terms of racking my brain, but it's up there. Let's get on to my biggest gripe with the game, the camera angles. So Plasto decided to go for the RE series of fixed camera angles, and that's not a problem for me. I love those games, but here, the chosen angles confused me. Some turn-offs are hidden in the dark, or once you step out of one angle, you find yourself in a position where you can't see your character, which got me killed. The reason the RE games use this so well is because they never disorientated you with a new angle, and the tank controls made sure you were always running in the direction you were facing, never getting lost. But Morphs just doesn't do that as well. Also, there is a map, but some areas don't allow you to have access to it, so that doesn't help at all. There was also an issue with modern controls locking up at certain angles. They've since patched that out, but I found my character also locked up in spots with the tank controls as well. It's a game where the hallways are more scary for not being able to see where to go, rather than what enemies they could be hiding. Out of all the games here, this one had me debate whether to even put it in the video. I can't recommend it, but I also know there are people out there who want to play something like this. So if you're one of those, I hope you enjoy it. For me, I've seen enough, and I do hope the devs keep working on stuff like this, and maybe the next one will capture that feeling better. I'm finally looking at something more recent. It actually came out last week, and I got a review copy for free, so keep that in mind. I'm moving up in the world. Arzette is a game you either recognize at first glance or don't, and that might be a small problem for most. Because at first glance it doesn't look great for the average gamer, and the style it's going for is a bit obscure. It's based on the semi-famous Legend of Zelda games on the CDI, or should I say infamous, as their cutscenes and horrible dialogue have been memed and reviewed into oblivion at this point. Most notably by everyone's favorite angry nerd.
It's real annoying when you're trying to fight enemies and there's someone nearby. You end up hitting them and making them talk.
Oh my!
Constantly interrupting your fight.
Oh my!
And why is everybody so twisted and scary?
Bring some fairy dust and I'll make it a magic cloak.
Whoa.
Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, is a Metroidvania that's level-based instead of the usual open-ended areas. You are trying to get the pieces of a crystal to seal away the evil sorcerer, Deux. The story is told through these wonderfully unhinged cutscenes. I love them. Dearly.
Really? You don't think I'm a disgusting rabbit nut?
Even just talking to shopkeepers and other townsfolk can be an hilarious aside. Unfortunately, later in the game, they do seem to be replaced by text boxes that turned my smile upside down. Added note after finishing the game. A lot of the cutscenes seem to change in quality and animation style. Like this one of the vampire has Arzette look more like an anime character than the CDI smirking monster the game was going for.
Anything I can do?
Visually, the game is a mixed bag, because it's aping the painted landscapes of Zelda CDI games. A lot of things look blurry and messy. The forest level's background is a Gaussian blurred nightmare I can never escape. But the interiors look great, and it does properly recreate the feel of those games without platforms being hidden in the background, so you always know where to jump. Controls are great, minus my D-pad that seems to keep drifting up, but otherwise they're responsive and enemies' hitboxes register well most times. I can't speak for how the originals felt since I never played them. One annoying thing is, you don't seem to have any post-hit invincibility, but luckily dying is only a small misstep as you start close to where you died again. But also, don't expect to find any health pickups. The restarting after death does make me think they did that to offset some of the flaws. It's not a particularly hard game, which is great if you want to maybe have newer players to the genre try it out, especially after you get the gun. The real meat here is collecting upgrades, opening new passages, and finding items to give back to townsfolk to get new upgrades.
Oh, you're a doll! They're so perfect! Ooh!
It's an addictive loop, and with levels being so short, you can get things done pretty quick. The boss battles are very weak though, especially considering you have a gun and pretty early on get a shield that negates and later reflects projectiles, so don't expect much of a challenge. Finally, music is great. It's really catchy, but every time you enter a new area or talk to someone, the track restarts instead of continuing from where it stopped, and that can get grating.
You got an eye for beauty, don't you?
So Arzette is literally a game built over the bones of another bad game, much like Kiryu from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. But it's pretty fun, and the cutscenes are enjoyable with a little cringe sometimes.
Yay!
But I wonder if the game will live past its novelty. I'd like another one in this universe, have the developers build on these elements further instead of just slightly fixing them. Lastly, I finished the game in like 3 hours, so try it out if you like an easy time and some decent laughs.
Oh, thanks.
I insist. Enjoy.
Before we end this, I just need to remind everyone that I am not legally liable for any nightmares that result from me showing Arzette. We had some fun short games on this list, but let me know if you plan on getting any of these, or if there are any other indies I should have a look at that you enjoy. Otherwise, please leave a like and subscribe, and remember, I'll see you next time.